Episode 9 by J.J. Abrams is often described as a movie that's going to have the most Star Wars characters out of every single film in the Skywalker saga to date. This is Mike Zero. If you guys are new to the channel, do make sure to subscribe to see future Star Wars content. Now, I will say one aspect of Episode 9 that a lot of people are really looking forward to seeing are, of course, the cameos that will be making their way into this movie. Now, a lot of people have been wondering about the character of Yoda. What's going on with Yoda in Episode 9? We haven't been hearing too much about him for this film. Now, we do know that initially there were no plans for Yoda to be in Episode 9 many months ago. However, this is where things become very interesting for sure. Now, these past couple of weeks or so, we've been learning a whole lot more about this film when it comes to some of the set leaks, the set designs, the concept art and storyboard descriptions, etc. However, what's really intriguing about Yoda in Episode 9 has all to do with something that has all to do with The Force Awakens. Now, it's described that through some of the rewrites of the film during the end of 2018, one of the plans were to use unused dialogue for the character of Yoda in Episode 9 from Episode 7. It's said to be for a scene involving Daisy Ridley during the third act of the film. Initially, there were no plans for Yoda's appearance, however, the plan now is to insert the unused dialogue of Yoda, provided by Frank Oz for Episode 7, that was cut from the film. It's described to be used for a scene that involves heavy elements of the Force and the Netherworld by JJ. Now, back in 2016, this is what editor Marianne Brandon had to say. There was one point where we actually were thinking of having Yoda in the film, and then we decided not to. Frank Oz came in for a day and did a whole bunch of Yoda, and he was over the moon to do it, and we were tickled in pink. So that's what they had to say about Yoda for, of course, Episode 7. So the dialogue being used for Episode 9 is from Frank Oz, and though so far Frank has not provided new lines for the film, being Episode 9, there is still a chance he could, but at this time, they will be using the old dialogue of Yoda that was made for a scene to appear in The Force Awakens that will be inserted into this movie. So what I find very amazing about all of this is that they are incorporating Yoda into this film in a certain specific way. Now, maybe he won't appear in this movie. It seems as though that, they're looking at it like, alright, Yoda had his limelight in The Last Jedi, let's move on to somebody else. And obviously, that connects to what we have been talking about for a couple of months now, about Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi, you name it. So Yoda being a part of this movie through dialogue, through an actual Force Ghost voice, is still very exciting for fans because to this day, alright, we really have not heard about Frank Oz being on set or offering any lines of dialogue, and now it makes a whole lot of sense. They're using a whole bunch of dialogue that Frank Oz provided for The Force Awakens as the character of Yoda, because he was supposed to have a scene, by the way, in Episode 7 that did not make it to the final cut of the movie. So the fact that they are drawing dialogue from the first film in the sequel trilogy and putting it into Episode 9 for a scene that involves Daisy Ridley as Rey, that goes over the netherworld of the Force and the Force itself, it definitely does tell us the fact that this is based within the third act of the movie. It really seems like it's going to be Yoda delivering a certain truth to Rey, or saying something in particular that J.J. Abrams had in mind way back when in 2015. Now, the thing here is this, alright? I'm a big fan of Yoda as much as a lot of you guys out there really are. So Yoda being in Episode 9 is not only a respectful thing by JJ, Disney, and Lucasfilm, but it's also the thing that you have to do, right? Yoda is pretty much as much an important character as Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader / Anakin, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. I feel like, you have to have him in there in some way, shape, or form, and that's exactly what they are doing with this dialogue of Yoda from The Force Awakens and throwing it into Episode 9. Which, honestly, it's good news. I think it's great news, because when we look at The Force Awakens, there were a lot of abandoned concepts that were completely disregarded for that movie and were being saved for, later on in the sequel trilogy. And a great example of that was, of course, Yoda was supposed to appear in The Force Awakens. He did not. That's why he appeared in The Last Jedi, and so on and so forth. So with J.J. Abrams now as director and writer of this movie, and how he is basically able to do whatever he wants for this film, we do know that Kathleen Kennedy is not as involved in this movie as she was with The Last Jedi, which honestly I think is a healthy thing for Star Wars, in my own opinion there. So Yoda, I gotta say guys, Frank Oz, you know, I really do hope that he comes on set during post-production to offer some lines. If anything, we will actually learn more about this as we go through the post-production phase. So far, Frank Oz is not involved with this movie per se, you know, in present time, obviously, because they are using dialogue from The Force Awakens. They don't really need to have him come back on board, unless they need him to provide certain pieces of dialogue that are going to be specific. Anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all of this in the comments. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.